Good morning, Mr. Mybeck. Good morning, everybody.
Good morning, Chairperson.
You ready?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. For the record, Mr. Gama is represented by the same legal team as before. Is that right?
Yes, Chairperson.
Okay, all right. Please administer the oath of affirmation.
Please state your full names for the record.
Siyabonga Gama.
Do you have any objection to taking the prescribed oath?
No.
Do you consider the oath binding on your conscience?
Yes.
Do you solemnly swear that the evidence you will give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? If so, please raise your right hand and say, "So help me God."
So help me God.
Thank you. Good morning, Mr. Gama.
Good morning, Chairperson. How are you today?
I'm all right. How are you?
Very well, thanks.
Okay, all right. Mr. Mybeck, are you ready?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, all right.
Mr. Gama, where we ended off on Monday, from what I recall, was working through the role that you played overall in relation to the acquisition of the 1064 locomotives. You had explained that you were involved in developing the business case, but at the TRF level. I just want to ask you, when the final business case was submitted to the Transnet board, we know it was approved on the 25th of April 2013, did you recommend and sign that business case, the final business case?
I wouldn't remember. Is there a document that you have that you want me to look at?
Were you present at the board meeting?
I can't recall whether I was or not.
All right. And then you say that you were part of the post-tender negotiations. You mentioned to us and assisted us with the details that you were part of a locomotive steering committee and the co-chairperson together with Mr. Singh, but that you didn't become involved in the negotiations per se. Is that correct?
Yes.
And we know that those post-tender negotiations then culminated in the conclusion of locomotive service agreements, which were signed on the 17th of March 2014. I think you did mention that those negotiations ultimately would result in the conclusion of contracts, correct?
Yes.
And we know then that in May of 2014, the BADIC, and then I think after that, the Board of Directors agreed to an increase in the ETC. Do you play a role in that? Were you party to the memoranda that were put before the BADC and the Board of Directors?
Yes.
And then I think that we've touched on this as well. Sorry, and just to confirm, so all of those steps were at the time where you were the CEO of TFR?
Correct.
We've touched on it as well, that when you then took up the position of Group Chief Executive, whether permanently or acting, you played a role in the funding of the locomotives. You played a role in the China Development Bank loan and also the club loan. Is that correct?
No, I didn't play any role.
Well, we'll come to that. Did you not sign and author certain documentation relating to the China Development Bank and the club loan?
I didn't author any documents, but I was involved in taking it to the correct people, the authors of those documents, as I've said to you when it comes to funding, those are financial people that deal with those issues.
All right, well, perhaps you could just describe to us what was your role?
Sorry?
What was your role then in relation to the China Development Loan and the club loan? These were, as you know, agreements, consultancy agreements, advising agreements with regiments in relation to the China Development Bank and with Trillion in relation to the club role. How would you describe your role in relation to those contracts?
Or maybe it would be more convenient if you took one by one, Mr. Mybeck, to
Yes,
say,
perhaps.
did you have a role in this one? If so, what role? And then the next one.
Yeah, I think, Chair, it would be better if we went through the documentation and then
Yes, okay.
It would assist him, because I could say I had a role. I really just came in at the tail end of it, when people have
Yes.
negotiated, and then you are the chief executive, and then they will say, okay, we now we now have a loan that has been negotiated. Come, let's take a picture. So
Well,
you can't say you played a role there.
Well, I think maybe Mr. Mybeck could take you one by one if that's not too cumbersome.
Yes, I mean, each of these, the China Development Bank loan and the club loan, is a topic in itself that I'm
Yes.
going to examine
Oh.
Mr. Gama on, but I just
Yes.
wanted to get a bird's eye view of his overall involvement. If he says
Yes.
he wishes to deal with that when we come to the documents, that's perfectly in order.
Yeah, so I think, Mr. Gama, for now, you can say what you remember to have been your role. If you don't remember that you had a role, you can say, I don't remember that I had a role, or if I did have, it might be an insignificant role, but then when Mr. Mybeck comes to the actual documents, then we can go through them.
That's correct, Chair. As I've said, the raising of those loans, I was not involved.
Yes.
My role would probably be at the tail end, insignificant. There isn't anything much
That you did.
that I personally did.
Yeah.
It's insignificant. Maybe you'll see my signature on one or two documents.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean that I played a role.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or it might mean it's an insignificant role, as you put it. Yeah. It obviously just depends what the content of the document is.
That's correct.
Yeah.
Then we can go through an actual
Yeah.
document, yes.
Yeah.
And then finally, were you, as you say, at the tail end, were you involved at all in the relocation from Pretoria to Durban of the manufacturing facilities of two of the OEMs?
No, I was not involved in the negotiation. I was involved in the approval.
Yes. All right. So you were involved in the approval of what? The amounts and the payments, etc.
Yeah, in the approval of the relocation.
Sorry?
In the approval of the relocation.
All right. I want to now look at what appears to have been going on behind the scenes. As I understand, Mr. Gama, under your watch, is my understanding correct, that you initiated an investigation into the acquisition of the 1064 locomotives?
That is correct.
And was that investigation incomplete at the time that you left Transnet, as I have it in October 2018?
That is correct.
We've seen some reference to that in the minutes of the special board meeting of the 13th of June 2017 that you produced in relation to the affidavit of witness 2, correct?
Yeah, I think that was the starting point where I was busy with the terms of reference for the investigation.
I want to just sketch to you very briefly the evidence that has emerged from investigations undertaken particularly by the money flow stream They have led the evidence of an expert, Mr. Paul Holden. Chairperson, you will know that he is due to continue his testimony in the month of May. I should just make this very clear, Mr. Gama, that what I'm going to say to you now is what the evidence that they've presented appears to establish. It, of course, will be up ultimately to the DCJ to decide whether it has been or not. So I want to qualify what I'm going to say to you on that basis. Firstly, what appears is that in those instances where regiments was appointed as the supplier development partner to McKinsey on the 1064 transaction advisor contract, Mr. Essa was paid 50% of all the fees of regiments, with laundry payments then having been made to Gupta companies. You want to comment on that?
No, I'm not privy to the report. I haven't seen it. I don't know anything about it.
Secondly, in relation to this China Development Loan funding, a contract which we spoke about, what happened there, and that, as you know, was part of the funding of the 1064 locomotives. What happened there is that regiments were paid a success fee, and we'll come to this later, of 189 million. 78% of that was paid out to a company called Albertine, owned by Mr. Kubun Mudli. Have you heard that name?
I've seen the name in the newspapers.
78% of the 189 was paid out to Albertine, and then 122 million of that landed up with Sahara Computers, was laundered into Sahara Computers. You know that Sahara Computers was a Gupta-owned company.
Yes.
Then in relation to the club loan, which we've also touched upon, where you say you came in at the tail end, and we'll go to the documents in time, there, Trillion was paid 93 million. 80% of that, 74 million, was paid to Albertine. You know anything about that?
No, I don't.
Then, what the money flows investigation has revealed, and other investigations, is that Mr. Essa was involved in the conclusion of a number of so-called BDSAs, Business Development Services Agreements. So essentially, you would get a commission for brokering a deal. He concluded such an agreement with CSR in respect of the 359 electric locomotives that had a contract value, as you know, of 18 billion rand. Is that correct?
I can't remember what the CSR contract was.
And the agreement provides for Tequesta, which was the company that Mr. Essa was involved in, receiving a 21% commission. Investigation has also revealed that Mr. Essa concluded a number of these agreements, including another one with CNR in respect of the 232 diesel locomotives, were part of the 1064 transaction, where the contract value was 9.9 billion. So he had more than half of the 1064 locomotives covered by these so-called BDSAs. You know anything about that?
No.
In fact, and now I'm going outside of the 1064, what the money flows evidence has shown is that Mr. Essa had a BDSA with CSR in respect of the 359 electric locomotives. So similar agreement with CSR in respect of the 95 locomotives, similar agreement in respect of the 100 locomotives. And their investigation has revealed that so far, CSR have made kickback payments of $123 million to Gupta Enterprises. Comment on that?
No, I don't know anything about it.
The other thing that has emerged is that Mr. Sharma, the chairperson of the BADC at the Material Times, had a matrix of business relationships with Mr. Essa. Do you know anything about that?
I think there was an occasion to investigate a relationship. I think the board did an investigation into Mr. Sharma,
Yeah.
related to a business that was called VR Laser. I don't know any other business.
Now, you sat on the board together with Mr. Sharma, is that correct?
It's not correct.
Did you interact at all with Mr. Sharma?
Yeah, occasionally.
In what context, Mr.?
He was the chair of the BADC, so from time to time when we went to present, I was not a member of the board.
So this is at the time when you were at TFR?
I was at TFR, yes.
All right. And you are correct, in fact, in those minutes of the meeting of the 13th of June, which we spoke of a little earlier, there is reference to that too, isn't there?
Sorry?
There's reference in the minutes of the meeting of the 13th of June, which we spoke of a little earlier, to an investigation or issues in relation to Mr. Sharma.
That's correct, yes. It had not been completed, I think, at that time.
It had not been completed when you left.
No, I'm saying we're talking about the fact that it had not been completed, that investigation.
Oh, okay.
Perhaps I could just take you at this point to Exhibit 27. You have it?
Yes.
Referred to as the Transnet POI reference bundle. Could I ask you please to turn to page 319, part of the M&S report where they deal with the relationship between Mr. Essa and Mr. Sharma. Transnet Bundle 6, Chairperson.
1 second, Mr. Mybeck. Thank you, Mr. Mybeck. Did you say page 318?
So Transnet Bundle 6,
Yes.
Exhibit BB 27, page 319, Chairperson.
Okay, all right.
So there you see at paragraphs 3.1.15 and 3.1.16 their findings in relation to the connections between.
Sorry, are you using the black numbers or the...
Yes, I'm using the black numbers on the left-hand side.
Sorry, I'm on the red numbers.
Oh, okay.
319.
319.
Okay.
So there you would have seen the matrix of relationships between Mr. Sharma and Mr. Essa. You would have seen this before, correct?
I haven't applied my mind to it. I haven't, just a fleeting glance.
And then the other thing that has emerged from the investigations that's of relevance from an overall perspective, this relates to the relocation. Are you aware of the fact that CNRS SA concluded a business development supply agreement with a company called BEX in relation to their relocation to Durban?
Yes, I became aware of it. Mr. Gonsalves of the CNR consortium came to indicate to us that there was such an agreement, and we requested that Waxman's attorneys investigate it on our behalf.
And then what the evidence points to is that BEX obtained a commission of some 67 million, and money flows intends to deal with this transaction and present evidence to establish that BEX is also Gupta linked. Have any comment on that?
I'm not privy to the, what do you call it, the conclusions of that investigation. I've never seen the conclusions of the investigation. So I don't know anything about it, but I know that when it was raised with me, I requested that an investigation be immediately commenced with.
So what you see is the sort of common thread that runs throughout is really the involvement of Mr. Essa. He's involved, in effect, in the 164 transaction advisor contract, getting 50% of the fees of regiments, the funding agreements, China Development Bank, trillion, the business development agreements with two of the OEMs, what connections with Mr. Sharma, etc. You see that common denominator or thread.
Yes.
So this is the person that you met in Dubai in January of 2016. Correct?
That's correct, yes.
Could I ask you to go to the bundle where certain documents have been added? And let me take you to documents relating to your stay at the Oberoi Hotel. Could I ask you to go to, try and deal with them in chronological order so it will be easier for everybody. I want to start off.
Is it bundle 6?
Which bundle do you want us to go to?
I beg your pardon, bundle 28, your bundle. EB 28. It's Transnet bundle 7, Chairperson.
So bundle 7, Transnet bundle 7. Transnet bundle 7. Is it here? Oh, I've got it here.
Could you please turn to page 335? That's right at the end. When I say right at the end, it's about 3 pages from it.
335.
Yes. Are you there?
Yes.
Mr. Gama, I'm going to take you to a series of 4 or 5 documents. Chairperson, I must place on record, in fairness to Mr. Gama, that as you are aware, these documents relating to the Oberoi Hotel, and this featured, as you know, in Mr. Singh's examination, are part of the Gupta leak documents. And as you're also aware, there is a project, and I actually understand you to have confirmed this the other day when dealing with a different witness.
Yeah.
There's a project that is being undertaken presently within the Commission to authenticate these various documents. So I just point that out to Mr. Gama in fairness.
Yeah.
Now, Mr. Gama, at page 335, what you see, the first email from the Oberoi Dubai Hotel on the 20th of January 2016, and it's sent to Ashu at sahara.co.za. Do you know who Ashu is?
No,
Have you heard of Ashu Shwala?
no.
He, at a point, was the CEO of Sahara Computers. Want to comment on that?
No, I don't know him.
And the Oberoi Hotel is sending a reservation confirmation to him in relation to you. And you'll see reservation confirmation, your guest name, Siyabonga Gama. You're going to arrive on Friday the 22nd of January and leave on Sunday the 24th of January. We've confirmed those dates already, correct?
Yes.
And then over the page, 336, you'll see that you had been, right at the bottom, booked a deluxe suite. Do you see that?
Yes.
If you go back to page 335, what you see is that Mr. Shwala, then also on the 20th of January, forwards this reservation to an email address reading salimessa@gmail.com. Do you see that?
Yes.
And it's your own testimony that Mr. Essa assisted you in booking this accommodation.
Correct.
Then the second document that I want to take you to, please, is to be found at page 328. And I do apologize, these are out of chronological order, that's why I'm dealing with them in this fashion. At 328, on the face of it, you find an invoice from the Oberoi Hotel. It refers to you, and under that, Sahara Computers. The company is reflected as Sahara Computers. On the right-hand side, arrival 22 January, departure 24 January. Just before the double lines, on the left-hand side, you see the word billing. Opposite that, it reads entire bill to Sahara Computers. And then 3 asterisks, no pre-auth, and then 3 asterisks. And then the bill appears to have come to AED 4,650. You see that?
Yes.
And it then appears to have been signed by you. Would you confirm that?
Yes.
And it says that above your signature, I agree that I'm responsible for the payment of this bill in the event that it is not paid by the company, organization, or the person indicated. See that?
Yes.
And is your understanding the same as mine, that that would then be a reference in this case to Sahara Computers?
No.
To whom would it be a reference?
It was just, it's one of those things when you get to check out, they show you the bill and they say sign here, and you sign for the bill.
Well, I think the proposition maybe can be put this way, that in the writing that appears immediately above your signature, the reference to the company organization must be a reference to the company organization reflected in the invoice. Now, that's one thing. you seem to be saying, as I understand you, what you are emphasizing is, you know, they put this, maybe as you were checking out in front of you and said sign, and you signed.
Yes.
Which doesn't necessarily mean that the reference in those words to the company is not the reference to the company written in the invoice. That may simply mean that you are saying, I didn't even check, I just signed because it's what you get given as you check out. So I don't know. I'm not putting words into your mouth, but I want to try and distinguish between the two scenarios.
Yeah, at a hotel chair, they show you the total amount. That's the most important thing. And you can always check whether they didn't put anything that you don't know of. If the bill is what it is, you sign for it. I don't know people who then read that fine print, but this doesn't mean what is written there.
Well, I can tell you that I tend to read quite a lot because I think that nobody will believe me if I say I signed without reading as a judge. So, and I think that would apply to Mr. Maybeck too. So I tend to read a bit and make sure that I know what's written.
No, normally people look at the amount, whether I'm being charged the correct amount. In most hotels, when you check out, they let you sign something.
Okay, Mr. Maybeck?
Well, I suppose then the question is, when you checked out, on the face of it, it doesn't appear that you paid this bill, or did you?
Yes, I did pay for it.
So there should have been something else that then reflects a nil balance, because what you signed shows a balance owing of 4,650, correct?
It doesn't show a balance owing, it just shows the total.
Yes.
Well,
It just shows how much the amount is.
Well, it says balance in AED.
Yes, it just shows the amount of the bill. That's all it means.
Yes.
Yes.
All right, Mr. Gama. Let's go to page 317. So that bill you would have signed, correct me if I'm wrong, on the 24th of January when you checked out.
Yes.
24 January.
And you would have paid on the same day?
On exactly the same day.
Yes. Okay.
On 24 January 2016. Yes? So then let's have a look at page 317. This is an invoice that's addressed from the Oberoi to Sahara Computers. On the face of it, the date is 2 February 2016. So that's more than a week later. And you'll see there that it lists a number of stays, including yours. Your name is reflected there. You see that?
Yeah, I see that.
22nd January to 24 January, and the amounts tally up with the invoice at 328. It's the 4,650 UAD, correct?
Yes.
Now, what we've also put in the bundle, and it's not necessary to go through it, is some invoices of other people whose names appear on that list. Mr. Koko, Mr. Mancha, you know them, do you?
Yeah, I know them.
If you then go, so that's the 2nd of February 2016. Let's go to the next document that you find at page 334. This is some 3 weeks later. Another invoice to Sahara Computers. And again, your accommodation is listed there, the amount of 4,650 AED still being owing, correct?
Yes, I see that.
Yet you say you paid this,
Yes, I did pay it.
and you say you paid it on the 24th of January.
That is correct.
Would you have paid it with your company credit card?
So I don't know. I don't want to take responsibility for this document because I didn't write it. It says invoice. I'm sure maybe it comes from the hotel.
Yes.
But sometime later, because I didn't have, I couldn't find a copy of the invoice that I paid, I wrote to the hotel, probably in 2018 thereabouts, or 2017, I can't remember. I wrote to the hotel and I asked them to send me my invoice. And they did. And the invoice will show that I paid on the day that I left. I don't know if my team has
And you
got a
still
copy.
have the invoice?
My team has got a copy of the invoice.
Yes, it would be important to make it available.
Mr. Chair, we are indeed in possession of that document. It is perhaps something, when I do re-examine Mr. Gama, will feature in that re-examination. But I can confirm that there is such a document, and in accordance with Mr. Gama's evidence, that account was settled on the 24th of January 2016, and the document on the letterhead of the Oberoi Hotel in fact demonstrates and reflects a nil balance on that very day.
Why has that document not been made available to us?
It was most recently collated.
Yes.
I only had sight of it, I think, the day before yesterday.
Okay.
Mr. Chairperson, it's not an issue. The issue of the, I'm happy to hold that over and perhaps have a look at it at lunchtime, but I'm going to deal with other things that relate to this invoice in any event.
Yeah.
So it might very well feed into that.
No, that's fine. But what I do want to say is that if there are any documents that Mr. Gama or his legal team have which are relevant or material to any aspect of the matters that he's dealing with, the sooner we all have those documents, the better. Particularly because if his counsel is going to re-examine on them, there should be earlier evidence on them. So I understand if it was recently obtained, but if all arrangements can be made so that we all have them, just like the legal team makes available documents that it will refer Mr. Gama to, the same should happen. So that would be helpful. Okay, all right.
So, Chairperson, this is 2 days ago, 2 nights ago. These documents were suddenly emailed to us.
These
ones
documents.
that Mr. Mayberg is asking me to go through.
Oh, okay. So you say.
So they were sent to us 2 nights ago. Nothing else. We just said, look, here's a link. Open it. And then it came with these documents. There's been no warning. There's been nothing to say what those documents are. There's nothing that even says there's new documents that you don't have. 2 nights ago, 10 in the evening, these documents arrived.
Okay, no, that's fine. What we should do is, we just need to try and share as early as we can, and where there has not been adequate time, let's see how we can handle those situations. The idea being that we want there to be fairness to everybody. Okay, all right.
So I just wanted to
Mr.
point
Chair,
out,
sorry, it's important that I place this on record. So what Mr. Gama is bemoaning is what is contained in that second statement. This has been the manner in which he's been dealt with. I'm sure that you will give him the opportunity to place on record what his concerns are, but certainly there was no context to when we received this documentation 2 nights ago, and that's the theme within which he's been dealt with in these proceedings, and he is aggrieved by that fact. I must just put that on record.
Okay. Mr. Mybeck?
yes, Mr. Gama, do you feel in your evidence now that you've been able to deal adequately with these documents?
It doesn't delineate from the fact that a lot of these things, the manner and way in which documents are distributed, to me is just designed to create some kind of an ambush where you don't know that you have a document, you've never discussed it. People will say to you, oh, please have a look at this document, this is the new pagination, but they don't tell you there's new documents that you've never seen. It's not just this matter. There is a matter, I was here, I was being asked whether I'd met President Zuma. Last week, I received new documents, which the Commission has had since October last year, that says there was a function in Durban that was sponsored by Transnet. But I've been asked a question beforehand, and you can't help, Chair, but think that you get asked questions and they're designed merely to just ambush you. People have documents, they withhold them. And then they're hoping that maybe you might say something that would then not corroborate the information that they have. This is not the only thing. I've talked about the Todd documents in the past. The affidavits that Todd had attested to, which were in the possession of the Commission, which were not being given to me, which were not being given timelessly. I could go on and on. There are many of these particular things that come through. There's also the Noma Gigaba documents that just came through with this document that were not there before. But you don't get a warning, Chair, to say, we have these new documents. You just get given, oh, here's your new bundle.
Okay, no. One, where if you are asked about a document that you haven't had enough time about, just raise that and we'll look at it, so that if at all possible, that can be deferred so that you have had time to look at it. To the extent that there are documents that you have been given where you don't know what the context is or what the issues are about it, you wish to be advised, please say so that you can be advised, and then we will do what we can to make sure that there is fairness. Okay, Mr. Mybeck.
Yes, perhaps I could also just place this on record. Of course, the Commission's investigations are an ongoing investigation. And there are various work streams. I was, in fact, provided with certain of these documents by the money flows work stream after Mr. Gama gave his evidence. The other set of documents that you'll come to now, it's a donation to the Zuma Foundation. Those documents were provided to me by an evidence leader. I think it's called the TNA work stream. So that's how we came to get them. So perhaps that also needs to be taken into consideration.
Yeah, so sometimes documents are within the possession of the commission, but they are not in a particular work stream. They are with a different work stream.
Yes.
And the one work stream gets to know about them
And
at a certain stage.
the other thing which is perhaps also important, Chair, to bear in mind, is that the relevance of these Oberoi documents also impact upon Mr. Singh's evidence. So it's important for us that Mr. Gama has confirmed the authenticity at least of one of these strings. So they have other implications, and they come to be here not only in relation to Mr. Gama. If I could return
Yes,
to...
but maybe you could consider for the future that if documents are sent, there is some email or something that
Identifying,
says, saying, yeah, what they are and where they fit into the whole matter.
That's a point well taken. Of course, Chair, if you go to the index, you could always work out where it was before and what are the new items, but that could certainly be done better.
Yeah, okay, all right.
If we go to page 334, Mr. Gama, on the face of it, it appears that Mr. Duduzani Zuma and then Mr. A. Gupta also stayed in that hotel after you, and that Sahara Computers was built, correct, on the face of it?
Yeah, I cannot talk to this document, its authenticity, its truthfulness. I didn't throw it, and as I say, it purports that there were amounts outstanding at times when they were not. So I don't know how those people work and how they deal with those issues, but for me, it's not my place to comment about those documents.
Could I then take you, please, to page 310? Now, this is a Times Live article that appears to have been published on the 7th of September 2017. Did you read
I'm
this?
sorry, what page did you say?
Page 310. It's 250.310, Chairperson.
Okay.
Did you have occasion to read this article in or about the time that it was published?
I can't recall. There were quite a lot of...
Can you recall having been contacted by the journalist for comment? The journalist appears to have been Kyle Cohen. Can you recall that person having contacted you?
I've spoken to so many journalists. I can't confirm whether I've spoken to this one or not.
All right.
I haven't had time to read this article. It's also one of those new documents that came.
So let's see.
I would need time to read it.
I beg your pardon?
I'm saying I would need time to read it and see what it says.
All right. Well, you haven't read it?
No, I haven't read it.
Okay. So we can deal with, could you do that over lunchtime?
Okay.
And then I'll deal with that after lunch, if that is suitable. Let me then take you, whilst we're working through these new documents, to the Truum document. We can get that out of the way, that you find at page 314.
Yes.
This is a document that you provided us with, and it appears that there was an investigation regarding allegation of plagiarism. Is that correct?
Yes, that's the document I told you about, that
Yes.
the institution had done its own independent investigation of the matter.
And so they were investigating plagiarism. Is that correct?
They were investigating the McKinsey allegations.
I see. The first paragraph, I write to inform you of the outcome of the TRUM investigation into the allegation of plagiarism against you.
As a result of the McKinsey, remember, the allegation was that someone at McKinsey had made input into my academic work. So what they call it is as a result of that. As you read that document, it says that on 6 August 2018, the TRIM office was made aware of an allegation of plagiarism against you. The source of the allegation was a statement from the global consulting firm McKinsey. We understand that the statement to have been made in response to press or social media coverage in South Africa on the matter. And then they talk about the statement, which is credited to a McKinsey spokesperson. We dealt with that at length at our last discussion.
Yeah. So let's go to the decision or outcome. That's at the foot of page 315. It says, under the heading Decision and Outcome, after full consideration of the evidence, the academic board convened by conference call on 29 May 2019, during which they unanimously agreed that no action be taken at this time due to inconclusive evidence. Is that correct?
Yes, that's what it says.
And then over the page, however, as I hope you could understand, the academic board also agreed that TRUM should reserve the right to reopen the investigation should the South African police investigation, prompted by the McKinsey section 34 in brackets 1 filing, yield a final report which includes inculpatory evidence specific to your capstone project academic work, not previously available to TRUM's investigation. Correct?
Yes.
I just want to ask you a few questions about the next paragraph. In making this decision, the academic board specifically noted evidence related to Ms. Jackie Firmo's role in the project and considered whether or not her contributions were in violation of TRUM's policy on editorial assistance. So I think previously you had spoken about the fact that a woman assisted you to some extent with the editing. Is that then her name, Jackie Firmo?
Yes.
And then the next sentence says, they also noted evidence relating to Mr. Spencer Horn, any role he may have played, and considered whether or not he assisted in any way that would have been in violation of TRUM's policies. Who is Mr. Spencer Horn?
Horn is a McKinsey consultant that was working with Saga.
So what role did he play?
No, there was a document that he sent to us, which was a research document that was, I think it was either a Price Waterhouse or McKinsey document, some research that was related to what we were doing, to say you could also look at this as part of what you would cite if you thought it was relevant.
Now I want to take you to the JZ Foundation documents.
I don't think we can discuss those. There's documents that I've asked for that I've not yet received. But we can, if you wish. Maybe I can then tell you.
All right.
At that point if it's got a bearing on what I've asked for.
Well, let me deal with that in fairness to you. Yesterday, you are right. You asked for certain documents, and we made a request on Transnet. What we received yesterday, and I don't know if you've seen it, is a statement by Nomvelo Makunga. Have you seen that? If you go to page 338, right at the back. Perhaps I can take you through it first. Because what...
338.
338. I think it's the second last page, Mr. Gama. It's headed, and it's a short document, so let me take you through it, and then we can work backwards. It says, response to the Judicial Service Commission inquiry into state capture on Transnet's support of the former President Jacob Zuma's events. And she then sets about answering the questions or the things that you had asked for. Firstly, question, the program for the Youth Day event. She says that Transnet's Corporate Affairs sent a representative to support the event and for monitoring if the event took place. Hard copy programs were distributed on the day of the event. Corporate Affairs does not have copies. The next question that was posed, or document that was asked for by you, was the report from Transnet Group Communication on the function. She says Transnet received publicity through the event, since Corporate Affairs ensured that such events should have the Transnet logo featured on the branding materials such as banners, programs, including on plasma screens used in the event, programs and banners.
It's
Transnet.
fine. I can see the document. I don't think there's a need for us to read the whole thing. Maybe you can ask what you want to ask.
Well, I'd like to go through it if I may. She goes on to say Transnet was also recognized during the program as one of the donors. Most of the time when I attended, the event would be well attended with strong media coverage. Then you had asked about any photography from the aforementioned function. She says that Corporate Affairs did not procure the services of a photographer for these events. Prominent department that captured the event was the colleagues from the Government Communication and Information System.
Sorry, Mr. Maybeck, through you, Chair. In here, really, we had been told that there was an SABC video, something of that nature. So we wanted a video or the photography because, they were saying that there's somebody that they couldn't see sitting on a table somewhere. So I thought I would assist the commission in terms of identifying that person. But
Yes. That would be important.
But that video has not been forthcoming. So if we can be given that video, then one can be able to assist the commission in terms of who the person was.
Is that a video that Transnet, as far as you know, should have, or SABC?
Yes,
The commission has.
We'll come to the video now. There's an affidavit on it.
Okay.
The commission has got the video.
Yes.
Okay, all right.
So in the documents that was given to Mr. Gama, it includes an affidavit on someone who actually looked at the video. And then, having received those documents, he then made a request for certain further documents. And one of those requests was any photography. So we have a video, as I understood it, this relates to photography. Then, what this lady goes on to deal with, sorry if I could just... Question, full report from Ms. Panya on the JG Zuma Youth Day event in relation to who represented Transnet at the aforesaid event. Well, she seems to have answered that. She says the attendees at the annual Presidential Golf Challenge were invited by the Department of Public Services and Administration as the coordinating department. The Corporate Affairs Department was responsible for the branding part of the event. The attendees were invited through the coordinating department. So with that being the latest document, let's go back to the documents that you were given. On the 6th of April, which then gave rise to your request that we've dealt with. Those documents you find commencing at page 250.16. And Mr. Gama, to shorten my examination of you, I'm going to take you to what I consider to be the key documents. They're also not in perfect chronological order. Let us start with page 250.53. You'll see that if one tracks the chronology, things seem to have begun with this request for donations towards the Jacob G. Zuma Foundation by this agency, Curious, on the 3rd of January 2015. Do you see that?
Yes.
And it was addressed to you, and it says in the first paragraph, on behalf of His Excellency, the President of the Republic of South Africa, Mr. Jacob Zuma, we would like to offer you in your capacity as acting CEO of Transnet the opportunity to contribute towards the Jacob G. Zuma Foundation Youth Day event, which is to be held at the Durban ICC on Saturday, 20 June 2015. You see that?
Yes.
If you then go to page 51, you will see that there is a memorandum dated the 8th of June 2015, which you signed on the 12th of June 2015. That you see at the foot of page 52. And ultimately, what was approved was the recommendation at paragraph 12. It is recommended that the acting GCE approves for Transnet, 1, to pledge a donation towards the Jacob G. Zuma Foundation Youth Day event, goes on to describe it. 2, that corporate and public affairs coordinates Transnet's participation, including branding. And 3, acting GCE recommends stakeholders to attend the event. Do you see that?
Yes.
So that you
I'm sorry, Mr. Gama, can I ask this question? I expected that this recommendation would also recommend the amount of the donation that they were recommending that that Transnet should give. But I don't see on the recommendation, I don't know whether somewhere in the...
Yeah, on just 2 lines above that, under financial implications, they've written an amount, the chairperson.
Okay, no, maybe it's just the...
paragraph 10.
Yeah, I can see 10. I didn't see it before. I can see 10 now. Maybe it's just the use of the article A in the recommendation to pledge a donation as opposed to the donation which is mentioned above. Okay, but your understanding is that the recommendation was that you should, as acting group CEO of Transnet, donate that amount. That's written in paragraph 10.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
So that you signed on the 12th of June 2015. If I could then ask you to go to a letter written to Curious on that day, that you find at page 49. There you will see...
Page 49.
49, yes, Chairperson. There you write back to them, thank you for inviting Transnet to support, etc. We confirm that Transnet will partner with your foundation and pledge a donation of 500,000. And my colleague the lady we've dealt with, or whose memo we've dealt with, will interact with your office, and you sign that on the 12th of June 2015, correct?
Yes.
Then if I can take you, please, to page 26. So that's 12 June. On page 26, one finds an invoice from the Jacob G. Zuma Foundation, dated the 17th of June, reflecting an amount due of 500,000 Rand, and it's signed PP on behalf of Ms. Dudu Mnyeni, the then executive chairperson of the Jacob Zuma Foundation. Is that correct?
Yes.
And then the event, presumably we know, occurs on the 20th of June. If I could just take you to what happens after that. Would you please go to page 28?
28.
28, yes. There is a memorandum that is addressed to you, dated the 30th of July 2015. If you go to page 29, you will see that you signed it. I'll just ask you to confirm on the 4th of August 2015. Would you confirm that?
Yes.
And what you were approving, if I read this correctly, Mr. Gama, was the recommendation that it's recommended that the acting GCE sign the attached sponsorship/donation contract for the Jacob G. Zuma Foundation. Is that right?
The contract, yes.
So the contract was entered into afterwards.
Yes.
Now that contract, you find at page, or let's call it an agreement, at page 30. And you will see at page 32, clause 1.9, there's the donation of 500,000.
And so you said we should go to 30, and then you move on to another page, is that right?
Yes, so the agreement commences at page 30, and I had taken Mr. Gama to page 32,
Okay.
where at clause 1.9, there's reference to the 500,000 Rand chairperson.
Yes.
And then if I could take you, please, to paragraph, or sorry, page 34, at clause 7.2, the Jacob G. Zuma Foundation agrees to the following for the Jacob G. Zuma Foundation Youth Day event. A, 1 times table of 10 Transnet guests at the event. B, the acting GCE will be seated at the main table with the host, His Excellency President Jacob Zuma, G. Zuma. C, an opportunity for acting GCE to address the honored guests and students. So that's what you were getting for, in part, for your 500,000 Rand, correct?
Yes.
And then at 9.1, for the duration of this agreement, Transnet shall be named as a sponsor and or donor on all publicity material or media related to this agreement, which shall include media interviews, newspaper articles, flyers, posters, banners, etc. Is that correct?
Yes.
So we've seen then that on the 4th of August, you authorize the conclusion of this contract.
Yes.
Now, just incidentally, with reference to clause 7.2, did you attend this Youth Day event? Were you seated at the table with President Jacob Zuma?
No, the acting GCE attended.
Sorry?
The acting GCE of Transnet attended, whoever it was at that time.
Just 1 second. Are you at page 42? What page are you?
34.
84.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. All right. Your answer, Mr. Gama, was that the acting group CEO of Transnet was sitting at the table with Mr. Jacob Zuma.
Yeah, he attended, yes.
Yes. Were you not the acting group CEO at the time?
Not on the day.
Not on the particular day. Okay. So you were acting group CEO, but on the day somebody else was acting in your position.
That's correct.
Okay, all right. And who was that?
And that's what I wanted to try and help the commission with, because there's, you know, when people say there's an unidentified black man that's sitting on the table, and
Yes.
and I said maybe I could identify him because he must have been that person.
Okay, but you can't remember his name, or you can?
No, I just suspect that it could have been any of three people who are Durban-based Transnet people.
Oh, but you are saying you yourself did not attend the function?
No, I was out of the country.
Okay.
So did you, was someone whilst you were out of the country then appointed formally to act as the group chief executive? Would it have been that person?
Yes.
And it would have been one of three people? Who were they?
Mr. Sotigo was based in Durban, and he was the CEO of Port Terminals. So I suspect that it could have either been him or his COO, Mr. Kwala, or one of his general managers, Mr. Ndlovu. Those are the people that I remember have represented me in one or the other function in Durban when I could not make it.
For the transcribers, Mr. Sotigo will be S-O-C-I-K-A, is that right?
Sotigo, S-O-C-I-K-W-A, Sotigo.
Sotigo.
Yes.
Okay. S-O-C-I-K-W-A. Then it would be, the other one would be Mr. Kwala, G-W-A-L-A, and then Mr. Ndlovu. And I think everybody knows how to spell Ndlovu.
Yeah, let's hope so.
Yeah. Okay, all right. Mr. Maybeck.
Mr. Chair, if you'll permit me, it seems a little bit misleading to me, this line of questioning, and I'll tell you why. Mr. Mayberg finds it appropriate simply to refer to the provisions of Clause 4 of the agreement. And I was waiting for him to make a reference to the so-called Annexure A. And it wouldn't be correct to simply suggest to Mr. Gama, without making reference to the contents of Annexure A, and I have that letter, which seems to constitute Annexure A, what this donation was to be used for. And so it's not simple that one must understand that Annexure A is what is referred to in Clause 4. So if Mr. Mayberg's not aware of the existence of the letter which constitutes Annexure A, I'm happy to give it to him. But in fairness to Mr. Gama, because you see, Annexure A makes it clear what that donation was aimed at. And
Is
it's not
Annexure A in the bundle that you're talking about?
Mr. Chair, it's Annexure A to this very agreement.
Oh, okay.
And in fairness, that is what ought to be put to
Well,
Mr. Gama.
Well,
If Mr. Mayberg doesn't do it, then I will do it in re-examination.
yeah, you can do it in re-examination. Let's allow Mr. Mayberg to run his questioning the way he plans to. He might be intending to refer to Annexure A later than now in terms of timing. Mr. Mayberg?
Yes, thank you. I understand my learned friend says he has Annexure A. Perhaps it's something that I can also get from him.
Or it's not here?
At lunchtime.
Yes. Okay, all right.
Out of the Commission's bundle, Mr. Chair.
Okay, let's continue, Mr. Mybeck.
Yes, thank you. All right, so that was on the 4th of August. If we go to page 28, sorry, that we've dealt with 28. If you go to page 25, you will see then that also on the 4th of August, you approve that payment. Is that right?
Page 20.
Page 25. So you approve the payment of the 500,000 rand on the 4th of August.
Yes.
And then if we go to page 40, you will see that the contract is signed on the 13th of August. But it's not signed by you. Do you recognize who signed that?
Yeah, it's signed by, it says M. Sikonyela, General Manager in the Corporate and Public Affairs.
And then finally, to complete the chronology, on the 19th of August, if you could go please to page 24, payment is then effected.
Page 20.
24, Mr. Gama. Confirm that?
Yeah, I can see it. Yeah.
Now I want to take you to the affidavit that you find at page 16.
16.
16. An affidavit of Simpiwe Mdladla, a forensic investigator with the Commission.
And that is Spiwe Edison.
Madlala.
Yeah. Okay.
Forensic investigator with the Commission. And he says at paragraph 3, the purpose of this affidavit is to record the analysis conducted on the video footage provided by the SABC to the Commission relating to the 20 June 2015 Youth Day event organized by the JGZ Foundation. And then if I could just take you to a few paragraphs of this. At paragraph 7.2, says that in instances where the podium appears, the footage shows the person or persons who addressed the event with the background JGZ Foundation logos appearing behind them. Sub 3, the full stage from where speakers address the audience is visible on the footage. I can confirm that the only branding and logos visible on the stage are those of the Jacob Zuma Foundation. There are none for Transnet. Sub 4, the footage does not show any Transnet logo or other branding anywhere at the event. Sub 5, the footage shows almost half of the President's table. Sub 6, at the former President's table, he was seated next to a woman who I'm unable to identify on his left-hand side, and probably the former Premier of KZN, Mr. Senzo Manchu, seated on the right-hand side. Sub 7, I could identify the following other persons as what appears to be at the former President's table. And then he lists A, B, C, and D. At 7.8, I was not able to identify Mr. Gama seated at what appears to be the former President's table, nor anywhere else on the footage. I'm unable to identify Mr. Gama I am able to identify Mr. Gama because I've seen him before in the media. So as I understand it, your answer to that is that the person who was acting as the GCE in your stead attended this function. Is that correct, Mr. Gama?
Yes.
7.9, the footage shows 3 guest speakers who addressed the event, including the former President, Ms. Duduzile Mnyeni, and Ms. Batabile Dlamini. Another gentleman who I cannot identify facilitated the introduction of students to the event. Some of the students appeared on the stage and inter alia passed their gratitude to the former president and the foundation. The footage does not show Mr. Gama addressing the event on that day. Do you know whether the person who went in your place would have addressed this event as you were supposed to have done, or as the acting group chief executive was supposed to have done?
That's why I asked for a report from the Corporate Affairs Department of Transnet. I don't know whether what Transnet has given appears to look like a report. Normally there should be a report. That report would answer those questions. Unfortunately, I had delegated that to someone else. I was not available at that time.
When somebody has been acting in your position when you are out of the country for whatever period, would they have reported back to you on a function such as this to say, I attended that function on your behalf or something like that, and it went well, everything went in accordance with the agreement, or would they not?
Normally,
or they
when
would give you a report
normally
from themselves.
when somebody has been acting, they will give a report that also gives you a summary of the significant decisions that they took. So within that context, they would then also give that report. All of those types of reports would be freely available at Transnet.
But from your memory, you can't remember whether he said or she said he or she was there. She attended, you can't remember. You would need the report to remind you.
And I thought the report would have assisted the commission in terms of whatever it is that the commission is looking for. I'm not sure what needle in the haystack we're looking for here.
Yeah, but what I'm asking is, from memory, you can't remember whether they told you that they attended or not.
No, they wrote in the report that the acting GC attended.
Oh, okay.
Yes, they did write in the report. So that's why I asked for the report.
Okay, no. The request, that request has been made, Mr. Maibek, to get the report.
We requested that, and then what we got back was this effectively a report, answer to questions by Nomvela Makunga.
Yes.
She being the corporate affairs person who says that she attended this function or this Youth Day event. She was asked who attended and represented Transnet. She gave an answer. She doesn't say Mr. Gama did, and nor does she say that his replacement, for want of a better description, did. So Mr. Gama's request was made on Transnet DCJ, and this is what we got from her herself.
Yes. Okay, no, that's fine. I guess that maybe she should be asked to depose to an affidavit and answer specific questions, or she should be called if possible, because it shouldn't take long.
Yes, in the light of what Mr. Gama has said, further investigation is required, and certainly if he can assist us by having a look at the video footage, we can also, I presume that can also be arranged.
Yes. Maybe what you can also do, Mr. Gama, if you can tell us now, the names of the three possible persons, Mr. Sotikwa, what his name is, and Mr. Kwala and Mr. Ndlovu, so that if need be, the commission can try and get in touch with them to see who of them was acting in your place.
Yeah, Chair, maybe to avoid speculation, because I also don't want to speculate like other people come to the commission here and speculate. If the commission could provide me with the video, I could be of assistance.
Immediately?
The commission has got the video, from which Mr. Matlala wrote this affidavit.
Yes.
Yes. He
How
says
quickly can that be done, Mr. Mapek, do you know?
I beg your pardon?
How quickly can that be done, do you know?
No, I don't. I was provided, as I've already said, with this information by the TNA stream. I can make inquiries in relation to that over
Yes.
lunchtime, but in any event, Mr. Gama has given the three names
Yes,
already, as I understand.
yes. Okay, let's continue.
All right, and then at paragraph 7.11, it says in the last line that Mr. Siyabonga Gama was never introduced as a guest at the event. Well, I presume on what you're telling us that that makes sense, subject to investigation. Can I then,
Yeah, Mr. Gama was out of the country on that day.
whereabouts were you?
Sorry?
Whereabouts were you?
Probably with some comrades in St. Petersburg.
Okay, all right, thank you. Mr. Mapek.
Could I then, before I go to a more substantial topic, let me, whilst we're dealing with the new documents, let's go to the one right at the end, page 340. This is an affidavit from Susan Albertine dealing with your cost payment. And she says at paragraph 5, Transnet's finance department searched the Transnet records and requested Standard Bank, Transnet's bankers at the time, to search its records for any payment to Transnet by Mr. Gama in December 2009. No evidence of any payment could be found in Transnet's records or by Standard Bank. You want to comment on that?
I commented on this on Monday, but I can comment again. The bank could not go back as far back as 2009 in terms of its records. So if the bank had been able to go back, we could have been able to find that. But the bank statements that I could get, I think they only go as far back as November 2010, thereabouts, which is a year that we couldn't get. In as far as Transnet records, maybe it's one of those miscellaneous amounts that it's hardly able to see because it's probably too small for Transnet. But if we'd gone to my bank statements, it would be easily found.
All right. So let's then turn to the 3-3 notice that was issued to you in relation to Ms. Gigaba's evidence. Please would you go to page 124. Are you there?
250.1.
250.124, yes. So you were issued with this 3-3 notice, and attached to that was the first page of Ms. Gigaba's affidavit, and then the portions relevant to you. Those you find at page 128. Now, the first paragraph of relevance is paragraph 31.2. What is reflected there is that she says that Mr. Gigaba also told me that Siyabonga Gama would be appointed as the Chief Executive Officer of Transnet before the appointment was made. The Chairperson, you will correct me if my recollection is wrong. I think you could hear this witness better than I could late on Monday. But as I recall her evidence on questioning by you, Chairperson, she indicated that this was actually supposed to be a reference to Mr. Gama being reinstated as the Chief Executive Officer at TFR.
Yes, that's what she clarified, yeah.
I don't know if you want to comment on that at all. So evidence was that she had heard that you would be reinstated before you were. I think that's a crisp summary. Got any comment on that?
I don't know, Chair. I mean, what is it that I could comment about?
What does it say?
So at the end of paragraph 12 at page 106, it talks of the executive appointment process, Chair.
It is recommended that the Chief Operating Officer, Transnet, approve the appointment of Ms. Gugule Gama to the position of Manager Continuous Improvement in the Organizational Development and Performance Department via the executive appointment process, subject to the outcome of the necessary Transnet human capital processes. Also, is the executive appointment process that you are asking about?
Yes.
Okay, so Mr. Kigaba, your answer is that that is a process that enables or that dispenses with a competitive process for the position.
Yeah, it dispenses with the external advertising. Yeah.
Yes, yes. But internal advertising, does it require that?
You can still interview the people, but you use the knowledge that you have, which is the CV, in terms of saying, identifying the talent.
Okay, so what I want to understand, because you didn't just say it dispenses with advertising, you said external advertising. So I'm trying to see whether it doesn't require external advertising, but it does require that internally there should be an advertisement and there should be competition within.
Yeah. Normally, but it's not. There could be exceptions. Normally, when you appoint people externally, you would have exhausted the internal advertising processes. Yeah.
Okay, so generally speaking, even with this process, it's expected that there would be an exhaustion of internal competition.
Yeah.
And whether you go outside or you don't go outside, but there would have been that internal competition.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, but sometimes also, Chair, there are specific streams of talent or capability, which we know that there are scarce skills, like engineering or certain artisanal skills that through the years the human resources people are aware that those are scarce skills. For instance, it's difficult nowadays to find a diesel mechanic.
I thought at some stage there were lots of those in South Africa.
Yes, there were lots, but there has not been a lot of intake in technicons and those types of places for those kinds of skills. And we've been promoting, for instance, that we find young people who want to train as diesel mechanics, because a lot of the young people nowadays, they want to use the laptops, IT, but we still have diesel trains that we will be running for the next 30 years. And if there isn't anyone who is coming through, it becomes a problem. So that's why we started the academies to try and deal with these issues. Yeah.
So you say there are there would be certain skills that the Human Resources Department, for example, would know are difficult to find.
Yes.
Are you saying that in regard to those skills, then there can be an appointment without even internal competition, or
Yes.
you are just making the point?
Yeah, there can be an appointment without even the internal
competition,
yes.
on the basis that we know
It's a scarce skill.
these skills. I guess that they would know that they are not inside those
Yes.
skills. Yeah.
Yes. Because all the time they have an audit of
Yes.
the skills that they have, and they know what they're looking for.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, Mr. Maybe.
Chairperson, I see that it is 1 o'clock. This was a convenient time to break.
Okay, let's take the lunch break and we'll resume at 2 o'clock. We are adjourned.